I'm very excited. I have with me today the gorgeous and fabulous, the wonderful Andrea James. Mwah, mwah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad to be here. Hi, everyone.
It's nice to see you. You are a writer, director, producer, trans activist. You just did Gender Revolution,
That's
right?
correct. I worked on Gender Revolution, A Journey with Katie Couric, produced by World of Wonder. And if you haven't seen it, it's on Nat Geo channel. It's a really great overview of gender and where things are going with all of that.
One of the other interesting things about you that I just found out is that you were working with Tinder on all these new gender options. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so they approached me and they had been really wanting to improve their service for trans people because a lot of trans women were getting kicked off the service by people who were mad that they got matched with a trans woman. So through no fault of their own, they were being reported as spammers or as harassers, and the system couldn't tell the difference between a fake report and a real report. So a lot of trans people would get strikes against them and get kicked off. So Tinder, in their wisdom and awesomeness, has re-released it from the ground up. They built it so that now trans people can identify themselves. You can choose any gender you want. You can type in whatever you'd like. And it's been really great for trans people because there's millions and millions of users, so it's changed the conversation.
Well, God bless Tinder. That's really cool. That's really nice of them.
Yeah, you know, because I think dating and youth are really the two big issues for trans people right now. And changing the conversation around dating is going to make it safer for a lot of trans people because that's usually where violence occurs.
The reason why I wanted to have you on here, I wanted to do sort of Trans America right now, what's happening in Trump's America, because I know a lot of people are concerned, a lot of people are worried. We were on such a good path for so long there. We were really in the middle of a trans revolution. It felt like we were in a really positive place, and then we've sort of skidded off the tracks a little bit with Trump.
Well, what I've been telling everyone is, don't panic. I'm old enough that I remember when Reagan got into office and everybody was freaking out then too. But you just have to have a plan and you have to focus and you have to work as a community together.
We were around during Reagan, we were around during ACT UP and some of the, during the AIDS crisis. We've been there and we know what it is. But for a lot of millennials, this is their first time ever confronting hatred.
Politics are a pendulum. It goes this way and then it swings back that way. They just haven't seen it swing back. So as somebody who's been through it, as you know, we just have to recommit to our values.
So tell me a little bit about what trans people should be doing right now.
Well, the first thing I always say is charity begins at home. So listen to me, kids. If you haven't done it, get your legal documents in order. This is so important. Right now, we are allowed legally to get our passports changed, even if we haven't had surgery or other kinds of medical procedures, but that may change. So it's really critical that people get that stuff taken care of now. Go to court, get a legal court order for name change. That's going to allow you to do a lot of other things. If you can, change your birth certificate. If you can, get a passport. All those things will protect you legally in a number of situations down the road. So
tell me about some of those situations. What are these situations and how does that protect you?
Well, if you find yourself needing to travel out of the country for whatever reason, because, and I don't want to sound alarmist, but when things go south in a country, they go south very quickly.
The LGBT community, especially the T part of that, is at the most vulnerable when things go south.
Yeah, if you look at Berlin, the Weimar Republic in Berlin were, just this epicenter of art and culture, and within
gay society.
Yeah. And the first thing they did is they shut down the cabarets, they rounded up the performers, the trans people, and made it illegal to be gay. There weren't laws on the book before then. So all of this stuff about legal things, it's really important that we do a very good job of focusing on getting everybody's legal issues in order, especially if you're trans. Once you have your own house in order and you have your legal documents dealt with, the next thing that you can do is start to reach out to elected representatives. And this is so important. We live in a world where people want to do hashtags and they want to change their avatar color. It's like, that's not enough these days. If you don't know the names of your 2 senators and your congressperson, You need to find that out. You can go on to, the government website. I think it's senate.gov and house.gov, and you can find out the name of your local representative, and you need to call them, and you need to write them, and you need to let them hear your voice, because that's the only way things get changed. They're very old school. They still take faxes. So you
Clog the fax machine.
Right. You've got to do it that way. Call or to go in person is even better.
Yes.
And that requires finding out when your elected representatives are going to be back in your area. Get in their faces. That's really important. Now, barring that, the other big thing is get out on the street.
Marching.
You remember what it was like
protesting.
during ACT UP? You had to get out there and make your voice known.
It's funny because during the time of ACT UP, I remember thinking, they're going too far. It's, they're turning people off. But looking back on it, that was the beginning of gay rights in the 90s.
Yeah,
And
it really galvanized the movement.
it got everybody together, and our voices were heard for the first time in a political context.
Yeah, and it was very similar in some ways to where we are now, because the 70s were very, everything was going great. There was nothing to worry about.
It was pride parades.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, here comes Reagan, and he's not talking about AIDS, and it's killing people, left and right. And so I think there's something very similar with Trump in that we need to recommit to sticking together. First of all, the LGBTQ community has to all come together and not have factions that I think we're splitting into, because we're all in this together. People don't distinguish between you or me.
I saw that there's new bills in Texas and Montana. What are those?
Texas is always behind the curve or ahead of the curve, depending on which side you look at, in terms of denying LGBT people our rights. It's one of 2 states where trans people can't change their birth certificates, for instance.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So Texas and Tennessee, even if you've had every surgical option under the sun, you can't change your birth certificate, which makes it difficult for certain kinds of things. And that used to be the reason that they would deny marriages. But now that we have federal marriage protection, that point is moot.
How else is that a problem?
Well, it can become a problem in sex-segregated facilities. You could technically be arrested. Like, I could technically be arrested for being in a women's restroom in Texas if they really wanted to push it, because according to Texas law, trans women are men. I think the hardest thing for trans people is that we don't have the resources that a lot of other parts of the community have. Gay men and lesbians often have better jobs, have higher rates of employment, have less homelessness. Especially trans women of color have to deal with a lot of intersectionality in their issues. So. They deal with a lot more violence. It's like, I'm very lucky and I'm very privileged, even as a trans woman, because I can blend into society and I've been able to kind of move through the world safely. But most trans people don't have that luxury.
Yeah. So what can we do to help? What organizations are there?
The best thing that you can do is contact local trans-specific or trans-focused resources and ask, how can I help? So, I was just talking to Bambi Salcedo at Trans Latina Coalition here in Los Angeles. They need things like clothes. They need stuff so that people can go to job interviews. It's like that level of help is still needed. Every major city has something like that. A lot of smaller towns that have colleges will have an LGBT center on campus. They can probably point you in the right direction or help you get some resources that are local. Whatever you have, you need to open your heart and help the community right now, because a storm is coming.
Energy begets energy, and action begets more action. This is the first step towards that.
Yeah, I think that fear and that uncertainty has to be countered by just stepping back, taking a breath, and saying, this is not going to break us. We are still here, and we have survived plenty of terrible things over the years, and we will survive this. And we'll probably come out of it stronger. That's the exciting part.
It's true. We will come out as a family.
Yes.
Yes. And it's all going to be okay. I think, hopefully. Well, thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad you were here.
I know. Well, thank you for having me.
Love
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Yay. And don't forget to subscribe
To Wow Presents.